Over 9 sections, we built a complete picture of how tax shapes an M and a deal from the term sheet to the day after closing. Let's look back at the whole arc. The buyer and seller conflict that opens every negotiation, the elections and reorganization structures built to manage that conflict, the NOL planning that has to happen before an ownership change locks it in, and the purchase price and diligence discipline that protects the deal once it is signed. If there is one idea that ties every section together, it is this one. The buyer and seller almost always want opposite things, and nearly every tool we covered, elections, reorganization types, purchase price allocation, exists to manage that basic tension. We started with the fundamental choice. The buyer wants an asset purchase because it delivers a full step up in basis to fair value and drives real depreciation and amortization deductions going forward, along with no assumption of unknown liabilities. The seller wants a stock sale because it produces one capital gain at preferential long-term capital gain rates and keeps liabilities with the company. That decision gets locked in at the term sheet stage, and it drives everything downstream, which is why we saw it resolved through a negotiated gross up rather than left as a stalemate. Section 2 put real numbers behind that conflict. On an $8 million gain, a C corporation selling assets pays corporate-level tax and then shareholder dividend tax on what is left, landing around 33% effective. An individual selling stock pays one layer of long-term capital gain tax plus state tax, landing around 27% effective. That gap, roughly 7 points on the same gain, is exactly what makes the asset versus stock decision worth fighting over at the negotiating table. So how do you resolve a conflict where the buyer wants asset basis and the seller wants stock sale treatment? Section 338 elections are the bridge. They let a transaction stay a stock deal on paper while getting treated as an asset deal for tax purposes. A 338H10 election is a joint buyer and seller election, available only for S corporation targets or consolidated group subsidiaries. It treats the target as if it sold its assets and then liquidated, giving the buyer a full fair value step up while the seller generally still faces one layer of tax, which is why sellers usually need a price gross up to agree to it. A 338G election is different. It is unilateral, buyer only, used on foreign targets to reset basis and manage GILTI exposure, with no seller consent required at all. Elections are not the only path. Sections 4 through 6 covered the tax-free reorganization toolkit under Internal Revenue Code Section 368, along with the doctrines that govern every one of these structures, and Section 355 spin-offs as a separate tool for splitting a company apart tax-free. The three acquisitive reorganization types trade off flexibility against how much non-stock consideration is allowed. Type A, the statutory merger, is the most flexible, tolerating up to 60% boot. Type B, stock for stock, is the strictest. It requires buyer voting stock only, and even a small amount of cash kills the entire tax-free structure. Type C, stock for assets, sits in between, allowing up to 20% cash, though assumed liabilities count against that allowance, which can push a heavily leveraged target to effectively all stock consideration. No matter which type you use, two judicially developed doctrines have to be satisfied. Continuity of interest requires at least 40% of total consideration to be buyer stock, tested at the closing date, not the announcement date. Continuity of business enterprise requires the buyer to continue the target's historic business line, or use a significant portion of its historic business assets after closing. Both doctrines exist to make sure a reorganization is a genuine continuation of the business, not a cash sale wearing a tax-free label. Section 355 lets a corporation distribute a controlled subsidiary stock to shareholders without triggering tax, but only if all five requirements hold at once. An active trade or business of at least 5 years for both companies, no device to distribute earnings, a distribution of all or at least 80% of the subsidiary's stock, a genuine business purpose, and no prearranged combination with a third party within 2 years. When a spin-off is immediately paired with a merger, that is a Morris Trust structure, a powerful but complex carve-out tool. Section 7 covered a planning trap. When an ownership change crosses more than 50 percentage points over 3 years, Section 382 caps how much of a target's pre-change NOLs can be used each year. That annual limitation equals entity value multiplied by the IRS long-term tax-exempt rate, which means the deal should be priced on usable NOLs, not the face value sitting on the balance sheet. Built-in gains can offset the limitation and accelerate usage in the first 5 years, and this all has to be planned before the ownership change happens, because the limitation locks in at that date. Section 8 covered 2 mechanics that determine gain character and deduction timing after the deal is priced. An earn-out tied to the value of the business at sale is capital gain to the seller. Tied to the seller's continued employment, it is ordinary compensation, and the IRS looks past the contract label to recharacterize it. Separately, every asset deal has to allocate the purchase price across 7 classes under Section 1060, with goodwill absorbing whatever is left over. The seller prefers value in goodwill for capital gain treatment. The buyer prefers value in the intangibles class for the amortization deduction, which is exactly why that allocation gets negotiated, not decided unilaterally. The final section brought everything back to discipline. Representation and warranty insurance shifts breach claims from the seller to an insurer, but tax representations remain one of the most common claims, and indemnity payments are treated as purchase price adjustments, not new taxable income. Tax due diligence has to cover federal and state returns, payroll classification, transfer pricing, and open audits, because in a stock deal the buyer inherits whatever diligence fails to catch. And after closing, integration steps like EIN transfer, automatic S-Corp termination, and consistent Form 8594 filings are what keep the deal from unraveling on the tax side after signature. Here is the whole course compressed into one idea. Every M in a deal starts with the buyer wanting assets and the seller wanting stock, and everything we covered, Section 338 elections, tax-free reorganizations, Section 355 spin-offs, Section 382 NOL planning, purchase price allocation, and post-closing diligence exists to manage that conflict, price the deal correctly around it, and protect the outcome after signing. That is the complete M and a tax picture, from term sheet to integration.